It is a delight to welcome to the New Hampshire Journal podcast, David Paleologos from Suffolk University, where he oversees their polling. And in my opinion, humble opinion, one of the best pollsters in the United States. Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Great to be here, Michael. Anytime.
Don't be too thrilled. I hate pollsters. So it's really not.
That's okay. Most people do.
Unless they get a good poll.
It's fake polls and you can't believe anybody. I'm used to it. It's okay.
So I want to ask you about the fake poll thing in a few minutes, but let's just start where we are in mid-March 2026. As you poll nationally, you poll here in the Northeast. Where are the American voters now compared to where you've seen them in the relatively recent past?
So it's going to be a challenging time for Republicans. There's no question about it, especially now. President Trump's job approval is upside down. His popularity is upside down. And the voters who put him into office, which was a unique coalition in 2024, young men, young Hispanic men, some African Americans, married women.
Sure.
They're a little softer in the polling right now, not necessarily because they disagree with him on policy, but as you know, in politics, it's about animal instinct and emotion.
Yep.
And there's a bit of a backlash right now. People are trying to figure out how this war benefits them directly, given the other challenges that people have going on in their lives. So that's kind of the starting point, but this would be a dire situation if it was late October, but it's not. We're here in early March, and who knows what's going to happen between now and November.
Okay, you've given us a bunch of things to talk about. I want to start, though, with the premise that because it's a midterm for a guy who's either been president just for a few months or he's been president since 2015, because in a lot of people's heads, that's how it feels, is that Trump has been there looming, even when Biden was in office. It's going to be a bad midterm for the party in power. Is that a reasonable supposition?
That's spot on. That's more than reasonable. That's spot on.
And so the question I have is, are we looking at 2018 where Republicans lost, I think it was 40 seats, and it was a bad, thing, or are we looking at 2006, which was just the total blue tidal wave? You had popular incumbent members of Congress like New Hampshire's Jeb Bradley, who lost to a first-time no one had ever heard of, who showed up and screamed at George W. Bush. So 2018 or 2006, based on the numbers, do you have a sense of where, once again, things can change, but the trajectory we're on today?
So I would combine physics with politics here. I think the worst is behind Trump. I don't think things could be, the polling could get much worse. And he has this knack for being weak in the winter and early spring, right, and then he builds himself and puts it all together, but he's not on the ballot. That's going to affect Republican turnout potentially if Republican candidates for Senate and governor just don't pass muster with some conservatives and MAGA voters. But I would say, so the short answer is someplace in between. And so if it's a 15 or 20 seat pickup, I don't think anyone looking at history is going to be validated by others by saying that it was because of Trump. I think that's a historical trend. If it's 50 seats, then I think Trump owns.
But it's just so hard to do 50 seats now because so many of the seats have been gerrymandered. There just aren't that many seats that are up for grabs. I mean, there are parts of South Carolina where I grew up where you could show up and perform an act of cannibalism, and you're still going to get reelected as a Republican. And in Massachusetts, this doesn't matter who the Republican candidates are. The Democrats are a lock, and so I don't know 50. That's my question is how much variance is there for the potential? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think with the decennial census and redistricting, you're right. You're not going to see that. That's why I said it was some place in the middle, because because the seats are so polarized right now. There are very few in the middle, and plus you've got some of the mid-decade redistricting that's going to mute some of the bleeding. But on balance, I think it's safe to say that the House will probably be Democratic.
Right.
Then it's a coin flip, but it's a weak coin flip for Republicans right now. Democrats seem to be showing a little bit more strength, at least in the Cook
Right.
report seats that I've seen, than 3 months ago.
Absolutely. But then there is this question of this war with Iran. And so let me ask you something about polling in general and wars. What tends to happen? You've seen, obviously, we had the 9/11, Afghanistan, then Iraq. We've had some other military action in between them, not as nearly as profound, obviously, like President Obama deciding to bomb Libya until Muammar Gaddafi was gone. As a pollster, what do you see and what are you looking for?
It generally favors the incumbent president because it's a us or them
Right,
situation, but it really benefits the incumbent president. I hate to say it, but if we're attacked, if
right,
there was a sleeper cell attack in
mm,
Milwaukee or
right,
something, then people on the fence are going to rally behind
right.
the administration. I hope that doesn't happen. I mean, I
Exactly.
don't think anybody hopes for that to happen, but
No,
if it
exactly.
were to happen, that would definitely benefit Republicans.
Well, let's try something with a little bit more hopeful or whatever, a happier storyline, which is what, we get to September, October, and Iran has, given up. They've decided we're fine. We'll get out of the nuke business. We'll get out of the terrorism business, whether it's with, Imam Jr., who just says, yes, sir, Trump, like they're doing in Venezuela, or maybe they collapse, whatever. The point is, it worked the 50 years of Iran causing energy spikes and terrorism and attacks are over. One theory is that helps Donald Trump. He looks like a leader. The other theory that Chuck McGee, who's a political operative and former GOP chair in New Hampshire, says the voters never give you credit for anything. Once it's done and it's in the box, they forget about it. There's no such thing as good news. There's only avoiding bad news. So, your take as a pollster, will voters reward Trump if Iran looks like a victory in November, or will it be right back to, yeah, 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 what have you done for me lately?
I think it's more of the latter, and I think
Yeah,
the GOP source that you cite
right,
in New Hampshire is probably correct here. More importantly, what we're trying to figure out is it's not enough to say they would have attacked us,
right.
because that's coming from President Trump, who's underwater favorability, underwater job
Sure.
performance, and underwater on national security
Hmm.
and issues like that.
Sure.
So that's up for debate. Maybe they would have attacked us, maybe they wouldn't have attacked
Sure.
us. They certainly would have started with Israel and in the Middle East, but to make that connection, to make that, it's a bit of a stretch, and it's not a documented stretch. It's from Trump. So I think people, from what we've seen, the affordability was a big issue last year.
Hmm.
It's carried into this year. The stock market's tanking. That's going to alienate, higher
Sure.
income, independent voters, unless it turns around
Hmm.
and, shoots up to new highs, which it could if the war ends, certainly. So there's a bit of work to do. It's not
Right.
a dire situation for Republicans. Republicans have a ton of time. Six months is an
Right.
eternity. But this is what we're seeing in the polling.
So when you talk to pollsters from around the country about polling in New England, what do they tend to not get? What do you have to understand New England politics as a pollster?
Independents. Independents are the biggest. People can't understand when I tell them that Massachusetts has over 65% independents registered in
Right.
Massachusetts. They look at me like I dementia. I have dementia, but
Right.
it's true. It's actually two-thirds of registered voters in
Hmm.
Massachusetts are independents, and that's why Republican governors pretty, regularly get elected governor, even though the Congress and the Senate is Democratic. And I think that's due to people think Republicans are better managers and Democrats are better activists. And so they send the activists to DC to pump their fists, but they send Republicans, into the governor's office because they can manage
Yeah.
budgets and be more efficient. And that's
Well, I'm not going to get into debate with you about whether or not Charlie Baker was actually a Republican. And we'll leave that for another day. But the you talk about independents. Are they actually independents? Aren't they really voters who vote for Democrats but just don't register as Democrats?
they would vote. They wouldn't have voted for Cellucci and Bill Weld and I
A
mean
long time ago.
Mitt Romney. I mean, there are more Democratic candidates on the ballot because
Right.
as well as I do for state rep and state senate,
Mhm.
there aren't any
Right.
Republicans even on the ballot. So sure, they're probably
Mhm.
by habit, but I
Right.
think ideology wise, I mean, New Hampshire's another perfect example. That should be Pappas. That is the Senate seat should be Pappas.
Right.
Cook has it as a lean Democrat. But I'll tell you, I polled the Sununu family for a long time, and
Right.
there's no better family that understands the independent voter or what they
Mhm.
call the undeclared voter up in New
Sure.
Hampshire better than the Sununu family. Look at how close Nikki Haley came when she was supposedly going to lose by 2025. So I'm not that I wouldn't call it a toss up, but a lean Democrat, it's someplace in between, I think, because those are the
Wow.
those are the fickle voters
Mhm.
who
Sure.
can turn things around.
At the same time, you have this other name that's pretty big in politics right now called Donald Trump. You may have heard of him. And he has a slight impact in New Hampshire. So the question is, and I don't know if polling gives us any guidance, can New Hampshire's aversion to Trump, where he's wildly unpopular, be overcome and let them vote for a U.S. senator to send to Washington, D.C. with Trump? Or is the Trump wall going to be too high even for a name as powerful as Sununu?
I would say any other Republican nominee the Democrats would hang
Right,
Trump around them. The Sununu family precedes the Trump family.
right,
So Trump is more of a fly-by-night in New Hampshire than the Sununu family is granite.
sure.
The Sununu family is granite, and so I don't think it's going to work, especially
Mhm.
given where the family came down in the
Sure,
Nikki Haley Trump race. So
right,
I think there's enough separation there for potential to make some potential
right.
inroads with the undeclareds.
So you're in Mass. I'm in New Hampshire. We've seen this fire going back and forth between Governor Maura Healey, who was trying to mock New Hampshire as live free and dumb, and Governor Kelly literally ran for office on "Don't Mass Up New Hampshire." Do you have any polling on what the two states actually think of each other? I mean, is there really animus, or is this just politics? What do you think?
I don't think there's as much hostility, only in the political
Right.
class. I mean, there's so much overlap. So many people work in
Exactly.
Massachusetts, live in New Hampshire, and vice versa. I don't really see that.
Mhm.
That's not the kind of
Right.
hostility you'd see at the Olympics or something like that. Uh, but politics is fair sport. It's fair game,
Well,
and
let's put it this way. If you had an Olympics between New Hampshire and Massachusetts, New Hampshire would win because we would win all the stuff having to do with
depends on what
skiing,
the
and we do
game
all
is.
the, and we'd win all the stuff that has to do with guns because they have that like ski shoot thingy. Oh my God, we'd totally own that. So I
Oh,
think,
it's
and
crazy.
hockey, we'd win hockey. So I think that's where
It's
you got.
absolutely true. It's
So
absolutely.
I want to wrap up with this the magic number. When I'm talking to people about New Hampshire, one of my magic numbers is I think it was 79,000 Democrats who showed up in 2024 for the non-existent presidential primary to write in Joe Biden. And the fact that tens of thousands of people would show up, so they knew it was meaningless. They knew like this vote doesn't count, whatever. To me, it was a real indicator of just how deep the anti-Trump passion runs in the on the Democratic left in New Hampshire. The fact that people swarmed in for nothing is really indicative of the heat that he generates on the other side of the aisle. So that's one of my numbers. Do you have a number about politics, New England, America, whatever, that you find yourself reaching to again and again that you think really shines a spotlight on something that's going on in our
It
politics?
clearly is backlash. I mean, there clearly is backlash. But again, Trump, as time goes on, people don't see this yet, but as time goes
Right.
on, people are going to just shrug their shoulders about Trump. He's a lame duck. He's a lame duck.
Mhm.
That he's going to become less and less a force. In Republican primaries, yes, Republican primaries, he'll be a force. But once you get
Mhm.
past those primaries and summer in the springtime, as you just
Right.
saw in Illinois, then it's about the Republican candidates. And that's where I think, Sununu has a chance once Trump,
Right.
he's not going to invite Trump to New Hampshire, I don't think.
You
But
don't think so?
I don't think. I mean, one of the time, we do bellwethers, and
Right.
so I was
Exactly.
looking at the data this morning, and I'll be watching Milford, New Hampshire. Milford, New Hampshire, everybody knows, in the southwest corner
Right.
of the state, has been amazing in terms of the last two Senate general elections in 2022 and 2014. So and in Hampton, New Hampshire, is a governor's bellwether in New Hampshire.
Ah, okay.
Milford and Hampton are the two to keep your eye on if election night comes around and the New Hampshire
Mhm.
numbers are coming in slow and you have 50 more towns
Right.
to look at. But if you got all of Milford's numbers in 100%, it's a good chance that's going to pick the statewide winner and probably
Yeah.
close to the margin.
So the last, but I guess I'm asking is like, is there a poll, a poll result you've seen recently that you thought, wow, that really shows where we are? Is there a number that you've seen lately that inspires you?
There were a string of them last year. You had some red
Right.
states, Democrats winning in red states, but that's why I think Democrats have kind of peaked. Last
Mhm.
year was sort of the first, if you look at a graph, the first sort of nudge up, and
Right.
then I think recently with the war
Mhm.
is probably the second peak and probably the topping, if you will, if you
Right.
look at stock charts. But I think that those numbers are going to kind of come down, and Democrats have to be careful not to overplay their hand, talk about impeachment prematurely and other cultural issues that are
Right.
going to turn off swing voters.
I ask people all the time, as bad as it looks for Republicans, and I personally think it looks terrible. I always have to remind myself that Barack Obama and Donald Trump were almost at the exact same approval level at this time, within a half a point or less. And so that's just something to keep in mind. I always keep in mind that when I see a Suffolk University poll, David Paleologos, I run right to it. I want to read it. I want to steal all the good ideas and pretend I came up with them myself. Thanks so much. I really
All
appreciate
right.
your time.
My pleasure. Anytime.